Me is Queen Usset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Alright guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and pass it on to somebody else who might need to hear this information as well. Now, a couple days ago, somebody sent this to me. I'm going to post this when I'm finished with this. I'm going to post this in the community section for anybody who wants to keep it. It's basically a picture, and it says 5 ways to not be used. Now, I've heard this from a lot of people. A lot of people have called me or inboxed me or, sent me letters talking about lovers, ex-friends, family members trying to use them for one thing or another. So I think that this 5 is really good, because if you're doing these 5 steps, the chances of you getting used is slim to none, put it like that. Number 1, the first one says believe patterns, not apologies. Now, this is something that I think is pretty common. I think most of us have probably, messed up with all 5 of these at least one time in our life. But the first one, the one about believe patterns, not apologies, I had a couple one time that I was counseling, and they didn't make it because the husband kept cheating. And every time he got caught cheating, he would give this big, grand apology. He's sorry, he's crying, he's buying roses. One time he bought her a car. Another time he bought a Louis Vuitton set. I mean, he just kept on buying these big things. And she told me every time she sees those things, it just reminds her of all the times he cheated, basically. And he would give this big apology. He would be crying and begging her to come back, and they would fight, and then he would do it again. And it just kept happening. And I told her, you got to stop accepting the apology that you know is not real. Look at the pattern. The behavior pattern is what is real here. And the pattern that he's showing you is that he's going to apologize and then do it again. And then apologize and then do it again. He's did this like 7 or 8 times at that point. So, like I said, they didn't make it because she finally realized that this was his pattern. And that's what he was going to do, And she got tired of the pattern. But if she had believed the pattern when it was first established, because like after the first infidelity, maybe the second one, okay, maybe. But when you go into 3, 4, 5, and 6, I'm not sticking around. He's already established the pattern by the second time. A person only has to do something 2 or 3 times before there's an established pattern. And 9 times out of 10, there will always be another time after that. So you have to look at the pattern and open your eyes. And instead of believing this fake apology that you told me yourself is fake, you have to look at the pattern. I think some people get tripped up with the idea of forgiveness. Should I forgive this person and take them back? I think a lot of people get tripped up with that. And I can see you getting tripped up the first time, the second time. But after that, it's an established pattern. And you really need to start to think about doing something different. Number 2, don't fall in love with potential. How many of us have fallen in love with potential? My daughter's father is one of the most incredible graphic artists I've ever seen in my life. I'm a painter. I love to paint like abstract pictures and things like that. But this man can draw anything. I mean, he can draw anything. And when I first met him, I swore he was going to be this great famous artist and we were going to live this artist life, potential. He didn't do anything with his talent. I think he drives a truck now or something. He didn't do anything with his talent. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have fallen in love with somebody because of their potential? They got the potential to be this great speaker, this great artist, this great man, this great woman, and you fall in love with that energy, And 5 years later, 6 years later, 10 years later, they're still doing exactly the same thing. Nothing. You know? So don't fall in love with their potential. Fall in love with what they're actually doing. What are they producing? That's the question. Because I think all human beings have potential. The question is, how many of us will step up to the plate and make it happen? Fall in love when it's happening, you know? Number 3, believe all red flags. Most of us breeze through a lot of red flags, especially in the beginning of the relationship. And some people keep on doing it. I always say, believe when somebody shows. Maya Angelou said this, and I've said this to you guys before, that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Red flags come up in the beginning of the relationship, generally. And if you're paying attention and you believe them, you will bypass a lot of stuff that you go through. Everything I've been through, every situation that I didn't like, every bad relationship, always had warning signs. They always had red flags in the beginning of the relationship, and I pushed past them anyway. If you believe red flags the first time, you will save yourself from a lot of stupid stuff. You will. You'll save yourself from a lot of bad relationships, a lot of negative situations. And this is with anybody, with family members, with lovers. You know, if you believe the red flags the first time, you will definitely save yourself a lot of trouble. Seriously. And most of us blow right past the red flags. We see them and they're everywhere, and we make up excuses. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We blame the other person. We do anything and everything except what the red flag is showing us. And that is a mistake. Number 4, know your worth. Many of us don't know our worth. We don't know that we are precious. We don't know that we deserve to have somebody who treats us well. We don't realize that how much we're worth. We don't realize how priceless, how precious we are. And that's a very true statement. I've talked to a lot of people, male and female, who have the lowest self-esteem you could freaking imagine. Just because, to me, just because you have the breath of God in you, you're precious. Period. That's all of us. And when you step away from knowing your worth, you don't give yourself enough love. And when you don't give yourself enough love, you let other people treat you badly. You put yourself in bad situations. You get in relationships with Voldemorts. That's what happens when you don't know your worth and you're not loving yourself. You let harmful, despicable people touch you. That's what you do. And you have to stop that. We have to stop that. You have to remember your worth at all times. And that will keep you from falling into bad situations with people who don't deserve you anyway. 5, don't lower your standards. How many times have you let a brother or a sister pull through that you knew did not meet your standards? Because you were lonely, because you were bored, because you were horny. Keep it real. Because it was the holidays. How many times have we done this? How many of us don't even have standards? You'll just take whatever comes down the pipeline at that moment to feed whatever you need at that moment. If you don't know your worth, which was number 4, then a lot of times you don't create standards. You'll just take whatever comes. You have no deal breakers. A person can say or do anything to you. So obviously they can use you because you have no standards. Certain things that people say to me, I'm like, you accepted that? You know, like what? I remember one time this girl told me that she was living with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's baby mother got evicted from her place. And she came home And the baby's mother and the baby were staying on the couch at his place. And I was like, it ain't no way in hell. It's no way in hell that I would have put myself in that situation. Not holding, she lowered her standards totally, put up with the situation. And of course, what happened? He started sleeping with the baby's mom while she's at work. What happens? The baby's mom gets pregnant again. And I told her, as soon as you accepted her being there, and she was like, well, she didn't have nowhere to go. Yes, she had places to go. She could have went to her mama. She could have went to a shelter. She could have went to another family member. But she came there because she knew she could pull that shit off. And as soon as you lowered your standards enough to let that shit go down, you opened the door to another woman sliding right up in your bed while you was at work. So if you have to have some standards, number one, and number two, don't lower them for anybody. And a lot of people say, they'll be like, well, you always going to be alone if you have too high standards. We're not talking about too high standards. We're talking about having standards, period. There's certain things, like I said, are deal breakers. Everybody should have deal breakers. There are certain things that are just not acceptable. And it's better to be alone than to have somebody stepping all over your standards. It's better to be by yourself and at peace with your worth intact than letting somebody disrespect you, dishonor you, use you. You're better off by yourself. You can treat yourself better than that, you know? So don't lower your standards. So those are 5 good ways, people. And I think that most of us can benefit from remembering these. I think most of us have probably done one or all of these things at one time. And I think that if you think about these, they can be pretty beneficial as you're trying to navigate your way through this thing called life. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So if you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to contact me, all my information is underneath here. If you would like a reading, please email me and I'll give you an appointment. And if you want to see my new series, The Witch Trials, check out my Patreon information underneath here. And come back soon because I have a lot more to say, believe it or not. See you later.